Welcome to Life Stories. Today, we bring you a tale of courage, self-discovery, and breaking free from toxic patterns. In a family where control was disguised as tradition, a woman finds herself constantly overlooked and dismissed. After years of trying to fit in, she takes a drastic step to reclaim her life and her peace. What happens when you finally decide to stop being invisible? Join us as we unfold a powerful journey of standing up for yourself and walking away from what no longer serves you. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to begin today's story. It was supposed to be a break, a chance to escape the daily grind, breathe in some fresh air, and reconnect with the people I loved. But what began as an idyllic vacation to Hilton Head turned into something entirely different, something I would never forget. John, my husband, and I had decided to spend the week with his parents. I had tried to be optimistic, even excited. At first, it was a beautiful resort. The kind of place you see in glossy travel magazines, the white sand beaches, the palm trees swaying gently in the breeze, and the soothing sound of waves crashing in the distance. I thought this trip could be different. That maybe this time, John's parents would finally warm up to me. We had been married for several years now, and I had always tried to make an effort with his family. But it never seemed to be enough. That first night, we went to a lovely restaurant for dinner. The table was set perfectly for our group. A long wooden table with seats for everyone. I smiled as I approached, eager to sit beside John, thinking it would be a simple, pleasant evening. But just as I was about to sit down next to him, his father, Richard, spoke up. His voice was firm, and his words were like a cold splash of water to my face. "Oh, there must be a mistake," Richard said, his eyes scanning the seating arrangement with a disapproving frown. "She'll need her own table." I blinked, thinking I had misheard. Surely, he didn't mean what I thought he meant. "Excuse me?" I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Susan, his mother, didn't even look up from her menu. "It's just how we do things," she said nonchalantly, as though it was the most natural thing in the world. I turned to John, hoping for some kind of reassurance, some sign that this was all just a misunderstanding. But instead, he just shrugged. "It's just their way," he muttered, as if that explanation was enough. I was stunned. The words felt like a slap across my face. His family was treating me like an outsider in my own marriage. And he wasn't even going to stand up for me. I smiled stiffly, trying to swallow the hurt that was rising in my chest, and walked to the table alone, my heart heavy with disappointment. The next morning, things only got worse. I woke up early, eager to start the day, hoping that the awkwardness of the night before had just been a fluke. I walked down to the hotel restaurant, expecting to see the family already gathered, ready to enjoy breakfast together. But when I arrived, there was no sign of them. I texted John, no response. I wandered around for nearly half an hour, searching for them, feeling more and more abandoned with each passing minute. Finally, I found them, seated at a large table, laughing and chatting as though I didn't even exist. I stood there, stunned, unsure of what to say. "Why didn't you tell me you were coming down?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. Richard barely looked up. "We assumed you'd figure it out," he said, a hint of annoyance in his tone. Susan didn't even acknowledge my presence. She sipped her coffee, unbothered. "It's just how we do things," she added, as though that explained everything. I looked at John, hoping for some sign that he cared, that he would say something to make it right. But he just sat there, eating his breakfast like nothing was wrong. I felt invisible. In that moment, I realized that I wasn't a part of their family. I never had been. And John? He wasn't on my side. The rest of the trip followed the same pattern. Every meal, I sat alone. Every group activity, I was conveniently left out. They went on a private boat tour without telling me. They went to a fancy wine tasting. And I found out when I saw their pictures on Instagram. It was as though I wasn't even there. I confronted John about it later, my voice calm but filled with hurt. "You could have texted me," I said, trying to keep my emotions in check. He sighed, looking at me like I was the one being unreasonable. It's just their way, he muttered again, as though that was the answer to everything. I couldn't take it anymore. I had spent years trying to fit into a family that didn't want me. And John had done nothing to help me. No one was going to stand up for me. And I realized then that I couldn't keep pretending that everything was okay. But what could I do? I had to protect myself somehow. Even if it meant resorting to a plan I never thought I would carry out. That night, while they were out celebrating their perfect little family vacation, I went back to the hotel room. I had a lot of work to do. I wasn't going to sit at a separate table anymore. I wasn't going to be invisible. And they were about to find out just how much I had been pushed. I sat in the hotel room. The silence of the space pressing down on me. The rest of the family was out celebrating, enjoying themselves as though everything was just as it should be. Meanwhile, I was left behind, ignored and invisible, but not anymore. This time, I wasn't going to quietly fade into the background. I was done being dismissed. Done being overlooked. They had shown me who they really were. And now I was going to show them who I could be. I opened my laptop and logged into the reservation system, pulling up every confirmation I had for the trip. I looked at the details, the hotel, the rental car, the dinner reservations, the activities they had planned. It was all there, under my name. My credit card had paid for everything. I could have just walked away. But I wasn't going to let them continue to treat me like this. I wasn't just going to disappear quietly. I was going to make them feel my absence. With a few clicks, I began canceling everything. The hotel reservations went first. I wiped their rooms off the map, ensuring they would have nowhere to stay when they returned. Then, I moved on to the rental car, canceling that too. The plans they had made for the rest of the trip, all of it, was erased with the push of a button. I even called the spa where Susan had been looking forward to going and politely informed them that she would not be attending. There was no need to let them enjoy even a fraction of their perfect vacation. I paused for a moment, staring at the screen. It felt good, too good. But it wasn't enough yet. I wasn't just taking away their plans, I was taking away their control. It had been their way for so long. And now, it was my turn. I packed my bags, took the rental car, and left. As I drove down the highway, leaving Hilton Head behind, I felt a strange sense of freedom. I didn't know where I was going. But it didn't matter. I was no longer bound by their expectations, their traditions. I was going to Charleston, where I could finally breathe, away from the suffocating weight of their presence. The ocean was waiting for me, and it felt like a new beginning. By the time I arrived in Charleston, the hotel I'd booked for myself was everything I needed. A luxury suite, with a view of the ocean, the quiet hum of the city in the distance, and the peace I had longed for. I ordered room service and sat on the balcony, sipping my drink as I watched the waves roll in. The tension I had been carrying for so long melted away, and for the first time in days, I felt at peace. I wasn't worried about what they were doing, what they thought. I was free. But then my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen, my stomach sinking when I saw it was a message from John. I let it ring, then another from his mother, then another from John. Finally, I turned off my phone and smiled to myself. They were starting to notice. And it felt oddly satisfying. For once, I was the one in control. A few hours later, when the silence grew unbearable, I turned my phone back on. The flood of messages from John began. He was frantic, demanding to know where I was, what I had done. "Where are you?" he asked. "What the hell is going on?" His messages were growing increasingly desperate, and I couldn't help but feel a tiny bit of satisfaction at the panic that was setting in. I decided to pick up his next call. Just for fun. "Where are you?" he demanded the moment I answered. "Charleston," I said, my voice calm, almost amused. "Charleston? What the hell are you doing there?" His tone was sharp, confused. "Enjoying my silence," I replied, taking a slow sip of my drink. "Did you cancel everything?" he asked, his voice dropping lower, like he still couldn't believe it. "Yes," I said simply, letting the word hang in the air. "I did." He sucked in a sharp breath. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" My parents have nowhere to stay. We had plans. You've ruined everything. I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I let his words sink in. They wanted control. They thought they could dictate my every move. But now they were the ones scrambling. Now they were the ones left with nothing. Oh no, I said, my voice dripping with mock concern. That must be so uncomfortable. There was a long silence on the other end. Finally, John spoke, his voice tight. You need to come back. No, John, I said, my voice steady and resolute. I really don't. I hung up the phone. My heart racing with a mix of emotions, relief, satisfaction, and a sense of empowerment. They had finally felt what I had felt for years. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I had reclaimed something that I hadn't even realized I'd lost. The ocean breeze wafted through my hotel room, carrying with it a sense of calm and certainty. For the first time in a long while, I felt free from the weight of expectations. I was enjoying my solitude. But as I sipped my coffee and stared out at the waves, I knew that there was more to come. The storm that was brewing was inevitable. And I was ready for it. Soon enough, my phone began to vibrate with a barrage of messages. John, his mother, and Richard, each one more frantic than the last. They had finally realized the consequences of their actions. And they were panicking. The realization had hit them hard. There were no rooms, no cars, no dinner reservations. They were stranded, and it was all because of me. I couldn't help but smile a little as I read their messages. Where are you? John's message began, his concern now mixed with frustration. What the hell is going on? Came next. Richard and Susan followed suit with their own pleas for answers, each one accusing me of ruining everything. I ignored the messages, enjoying the peace of my own space. They had spent the past few days treating me like an invisible piece of furniture. And now they were feeling the sting of their own actions. The roles had reversed. And for once, I wasn't the one left scrambling. For once, I wasn't the one who had to bend to their will. When John finally called again, I answered. Where are you? He asked, his voice sharp with anger. Charleston, I said, the calmness of my voice belying the tension that had been building in my chest for years. I wasn't just speaking the word, I was claiming it. I was asserting myself in a way I had never done before. Why the hell are you there? He demanded. Enjoying my peace, I replied, feeling a surge of satisfaction. He was silent for a moment, perhaps processing what I had said. You need to fix this, he said, his voice now tinged with desperation. I don't think you understand, I said, my tone steady and clear. I've been living under your family's control for years. And now, for the first time, I'm living for myself. This isn't about fixing anything, John. It's about me choosing to be free. His response was a sigh. One of frustration, but also perhaps realization. I could almost hear the gears turning in his head. He hadn't thought this would happen. He hadn't thought that I would finally stop playing the role of the obedient wife. The one who swallowed her hurt and carried on. But I wasn't that woman anymore. As the morning passed, I started to feel the weight of what I had done, and what I was about to do. I had made my point. But it wasn't enough. I knew there would be a confrontation. One that would finally lay everything bare. By mid-afternoon, I got a text from Sarah, John's cousin. Her message was short, but it hit me hard. I heard what happened. Honestly, good for you. I frowned, rereading it. I had always gotten along with Sarah. But we weren't close. Her words left me with a sense of unease. What did she mean by that? She quickly clarified, her next message sending a chill down my spine. They did the same thing to John's ex-wife. The truth hit me like a punch to the gut. The pattern wasn't new. John's family had done this before. They had treated his ex-wife the same way, isolating her, dismissing her, and ultimately driving her away. It wasn't a one-time incident. It was a part of their twisted tradition. And John had known it all along. John never told you, did he? Sarah's message continued. He didn't want you to know. He made sure you wouldn't see the signs. Suddenly, everything clicked into place. The little comments, the dismissive looks, The way I had always been treated as an afterthought, this was their way. It wasn't just something they did to me. It was something they did to every woman who entered their lives. And John? He was complicit. He had let it happen. Just as he had with his ex-wife. The realization stung, but it also gave me strength. This wasn't about family quirks or traditions. This was about control, and I was done with it. Later that evening, I received a call from John. His voice was low, tight with frustration. "You need to fix this," he said again. I let out a slow breath. "No, John," I replied, my voice firm. "I don't think I do." And that was it. The last straw. The moment I knew I couldn't go back. The moment I realized that I was no longer willing to be a part of the life that he and his family had tried to force on me. The final straw came when John called again. His desperation now unmistakable. "Where are you going?" he demanded. "I'm leaving," I said simply. "I'm done." He paused, confusion and disbelief in his voice. "You can't just leave a marriage." I met his words with quiet resolve. "No, John. You and your family did this long before I ever made this decision. You taught me how to disappear. How to be nothing." Silence filled the line. But it wasn't the uncomfortable silence of earlier. It was different, one of finality. I walked out of that conference room. And I never looked back. I didn't need to prove anything to him anymore. The games they had played for years, the control they had exerted, were now just a memory. And with that memory, I freed myself from the prison I had once tried so hard to fit into. The divorce was finalized 6 months later. John tried everything, begging, blaming, even accusing me of overreacting, but it didn't matter. I had found peace in leaving. And there was no going back. Years later, I received a message from an unknown number. "I see it now. I'm sorry." I stared at the screen for a long time before deleting it. For the first time in years, I was free. I had reclaimed myself. And I had no intention of letting anyone take that away. If you found this story meaningful, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more life stories. Your journey to freedom may begin with just one step. Don't be afraid to take it.